That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Hi everyone, I'm Super2. Welcome to another episode of Comic Reviews. We have a pretty short stack today. Oh wait, I forgot something. One moment, please. And a trade. So we've got a stack and a trade today to get through. Another Zorro book, if you didn't see the thumbnail. So let's go ahead and get started right away with Batman Beyond number 6. Well, the Brother Eye stuff is finally done. There's that to look forward to. It was kind of a clever ending. The way they did it is, you know, he gets the Bat Bunny suit and then goes to, like, teleports to Eye's lair and is getting the crap beat out of him because that seems to be all that this Tim Drake Batman Beyond is doing. Gets the crap beat out of him, but then Ink, who he teamed up with, suddenly, like, comes off of his suit and takes down Eye for him because of, like, a deal they made and yada yada yada. I was pretty happy with that. That was a pretty good idea. Sorry, I'm being distracted. That was pretty clever overall. And she doesn't even care. Not even a little bit. See how she is? No, that was a pretty clever twist, and it reminded me a lot of, I believe it's Ink's first episode, when she kind of fakes being Terry McGinnis, when Bruce Wayne comes to rescue him, in the Bat-bot suit. I think that's her first. It's one of her first appearances, at least. So I thought that was a pretty clever way to send off her character, since she seems to be dead. And they might be setting her daughter up as kind of like a villain, possibly? I don't know. It's a little weird because, like, there's this, you know, on the last page, she's obviously really upset at Tim Drake, and then the very next panel, they're hugging. And so I don't really know where that plot thread is going. Overall, though, I'm still just really not enjoying this book, and I really hope that it gets better now that we're done with this Brother Eye stuff. And, like, if that was any indication of the quality of writing in Future's End, I have no desire whatsoever to go pick that up. So I don't know. This has not been a great book so far, and as I've continued to say, I just really, really wish that they'd kept the other Batman Beyond book going, because that was, even though it ended on kind of an note, it was still miles above this. Tim Drake, you can be Batman, I don't mind, but you don't need to take Terry McGinnis' spot to do it. So there are my feelings on that, at least so far. I'm really hoping to see an improvement, but I'm not encouraged by this, because, I mean, the ending was at least kind of clever and kind of sort of reminiscent of original Batman Beyond, but still. So let's hope for the future, shall we? Nope. DC Bombshells, number 4. DC Comics Bombshells, number 4. Alright, so the Supergirl side of things. They're being played and treated poorly by the Soviets, so it's not, you know, exceptional writing. I was actually kind of hoping to see the Soviets written more cleverly than this, but it's okay. It's pretty typical, I guess I'd say, for, you know, World War II writing. The Soviets are the wrong people on the right side kind of thing. So that could have been more encouraging. I really liked how Supergirl was presented in the first issue, and I don't know. especially with the Soviet Air Force, because that's, you know, a lot of really interesting stuff with World War II Red Air Force, Red Army Air Force, whatever. So I guess I was just hoping for more from that story, but basically they're being used as propaganda, and then they're set up to try to kill Russian civilians who are put into a camp that's made to look like a Nazi camp. And they were gonna destroy it. It's comic books. It's always complicated. So, I don't know. I was disappointed by that. But the other two stories in this, which is Harley Quinn and Wonder Woman, those were pretty good. Harley Quinn seems kind of like a Dr. Jekyll thing going on. Because she, like, seems to be a normal doctor, and then someone says, "Come find me," and it, like, turns into green text, which, while they're talking about the Joker, so it alludes to the idea that she's, like, somehow a slave to the Joker's, like, mental commands or whatever. And she just, like, freaks out and suddenly, you know, collapses on the ground and gets super violent out of nowhere and becomes Harley Quinn. And then she dresses up like a slutty elf and goes to a Christmas party and picks up Hal Jordan and then has him take her to a plane and knocks him out and flies away in his plane. I don't know. That's random. It was fun to read her, though. Like, I like that they're just kind of putting everybody in this, but at the same time, I'm a little disappointed. I really wish we'd just focus Supergirl, Wonder Woman, Batgirl, or Batwoman, whatever. Because putting Zatanna in it, and now Harley Quinn, and then Mira, it's all over the place. We're getting too many character syndrome is, I think, my biggest problem with this. But it's hard to complain about that, because I'm enjoying what they're doing for the most part. I mean, the Harley Quinn stuff, it was okay. There was nothing wrong with it. I don't like the costume they gave her. Like I say, slutty elf. I don't really know what else to call that. It's just kind of silly. Especially in the 40s. I can't buy that, man. Anyway, so her story was just okay. The Supergirl story was typical. Harley Quinn's was just okay. Wonder Woman's stuff was really good, though. They're doing a lot of interesting stuff with Steve Trevor right now, giving him kind of a PTSD thing, which is really interesting, and I like where they're going with that. I hadn't quite picked up on it as strongly in this issue. And I love their explanation for Wonder Woman's, you know, costume, or as she calls it, her armor. So there's a look for her, and it's clearly inspired by the quote-unquote bombshells, bombshell girls, and that's what we got in the background. And she's like, it's inspired by your goddess of war and justice, war and love. And I thought that was really clever, is that, you know, the suits designed her armor based off of the bombshell girls on the planes, because that's what her character design is based off of. So that was a pretty clever explanation for how they got to it. But anyway, so she defeated a bunch of Nazis in this part of the story and brought them back to camp as prisoners. And the soldiers aren't okay with that because, you know, it's a war. And she's sitting there trying to defend doing the right thing, not just the thing that you want to do because it feels right. And that's getting her labeled as an insurrection and desertion. Getting her charged with insurrection and desertion of duty. And that's the penalty for that is execution, which is really clever. I mean, she only brought back 3 Nazis. And that's just one of those things. Like, you know, that's Wonder Woman's kind of thing to do, is to, you know, the guys surrendered, so she's going to be honorable about it and not kill them in cold blood. So that was really clever. So it's a very... This is probably the first not great issue I've had so far. But it's not bad. I don't know. Could be better. It's not terrible. Kind of just an okay issue so far. But that's forgivable since most of the book has been fantastic thus far. So let's go ahead and move on to Darth Vader number 12. You know, I like this whole... I've talked about this a little bit. I like this whole page of introduction, whatever you want to call it, thing. But I've been really disappointed with the fact that it's not very Star Wars-y. It does read like a plot synopsis, and I'd like it to read like the Star Wars opening scroll thing. And I mean, that's a thin line, to be fair, but I feel like there's enough of a difference that they could give it a little bit more of that style. I don't know. End of the day, it's exposition either way that I don't really need since I've been reading the book for long enough. I'm going to stop trying to summarize the plot in this book because, man, it's dense, and it is quick, and it is high tension. That being said, it is good. I'm a little disappointed by how they get out of the cliffhanger left at the end. You know, the cliffhanger at the end of the last issue was really good, and their method of getting them out of it felt a little cheap. Not like cheating, but just not as cool as the setup was. Because they really were in a no-win scenario, nail-biting tension kind of moment, and it just kind of gets out with dialogue. So I was disappointed by that. But at the same time, it's a clever way out, and it's advancing the story further. That being said, it feels like a cheap ploy so that we can continue this intrigue stuff and have Darth Vader be the subject of like a big crossover event between all the books. So, yeah. Could have gone better. Not horrible, though. So it turns out that the person spying on Vader was this Akbarian dude. Oh, what's the name of that race? The calamari? Which is, you know, it's squid food. So that's the dude that's been spying on Vader, not his partner or whatever. No, but still pretty good overall, and I don't mind that they're setting up a big crossover event. I just wish that the method of getting them out of that plot or out of that cliffhanger had been a little bit better. Because it's just a couple lines that does it, and I don't know. That's a little weak to me. There's not a ton else to say about it. It's a pretty simple issue. Vader's continuing his mission to find Luke, kind of low key, and doesn't seem to doesn't seem as focused on the whole overthrowing the Emperor thing as the earlier issues did. And now, by request of one Mr. Connor Nielsen, James Bond by Warren Ellis, number 1. Varga is the name of the story. So, disclaimer. Bond fan, I am not. Bond is cool in an objective way. He's certainly enjoyable, and people can be into him all they want. That's fine. He's just not my character. I don't have much of an interest or investment in those, like, shoot 'em up style action heroes. That's just never really been my thing. There are movies here and there like that I enjoy, but it's really not like my go-to. And so Bond is kind of the start and the end of that genre of hero in my mind, at least. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's at least how I've always felt. I mean, even in video games, I don't really like shoot 'ems. Even first person or just generic shoot 'ems, just don't do it for me. So that's my disclaimer. And unsurprisingly, I didn't particularly care for it. It's not bad. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not my thing. I'm just not that into James Bond, and so I'm not that into this comic book, which is about James Bond. It's incredibly brutal, which I was surprised by. Let me find a good panel to show. Yeah, that's a pretty good panel to show how brutal this damn thing is. Look at that. Bond cut off a guy's fingers with a shovel, in order to stop him from shooting him. That was a lot of pronouns. Hopefully it all made sense. It's a pretty good cold open, though. I would have preferred something like the, gun barrel thing, because that's always been a cool aesthetic. That being said, though, this seems to be setting up some kind of drug lord as the villain, which is fine. I like their idea for Pennywise, Miss Pennywise, as the last line of defense for M. It's pretty clever, I guess, that instead of just being a hot secretary, Pennywise is, the person that will kill you when everyone else has failed to kill you, in case of a direct assault. I don't know. It's really just not my thing. There's quite a bit of ads in this. Feels like a wasted amount of pages. I mean, look at that. That much story versus that much ad. That's not quite right. Maybe I just notice it more because all the ads are at the end, so I'm reading it thinking that I have more story to go, and then I get to the end and it's this much of it's ads. Suppose the idea is to not interrupt your reading with advertisements, and certainly that's an admirable thing to do, but I don't know. It's disappointing, though. But yeah, I don't have a ton to say about this. It is good. It's a well done story. It's got some intriguing setup. Particularly this villain that they're foreshadowing at the end. We've been discussing further therapies. We should also consider direct neurological intervention, not just yet. Soon, I promise, but we have a little local trouble to take care of first. We may be able to deal with it immediately, but if not, you will have to kill this man tomorrow, Mr. Masters. And he says, can I make it hurt, please? So there's some kind of neurological disorder that this guy has, and he's, the man is Bond, so. Meh. It's intriguing. It's just not my thing. I'm just not a James Bond fan. Sorry. And Connor, you should be happy. I had to go to 2 comic stores to find that. And yes, I have 2 comic stores. I have 3, actually. 4, depending on how you count them. So. I had to go to a number of comic stores, though. So anyway, here we are wrapping up the Matt Wagner Zorro run with Zorro Rides Again. Volume 2. The Wrath of Lady Zorro. This was disappointing. It's not bad, but the art takes a major drop in quality because they switch artists for this volume. And what they're setting up, and what they set up in Volume 3, doesn't get paid off. And that's not their fault. They didn't know they were going to run out of issues. But at the same time, as much as I enjoyed Tales of the Fox, it's a little disappointing to have an entire volume just be an anthology thing that doesn't really do much but subtly set up a villain in the background throughout each issue. Zorro doesn't want to wait to be talked about. Even when I have nothing but bad things to say. Not nothing but bad things, but certainly less than flattering things to say. No, it's just that, the villain that was set up in the 3rd volume, Tales of the Fox, that never goes anywhere. And then, the only thing that gets paid off from that volume is Diego's father dying. And I guess we get Lady Zorro in here as well, but they don't get the monster. No, because that was set up in Zorro Rides Again Volume 1. So we get Lady Zorro coming in here, and she is pretty much what this volume is about. Hence, Wrath of the Lady Zorro. But El Gago, how do I say his name? The Hound, the Gonzalez, he doesn't get paid off enough. Like, he starts out as a actually good villain finally. A competent villain, let's say, because he was always fun to read, if nothing else. But we don't get any conclusion of his story in this issue, or in this volume. And they couldn't publish anymore after this. At least they haven't been able to. So really, this is, the end of... This is the end of the run, at least for now, unless they get a chance to come back with it yet again. And what's it going to be called? Zorro Rides Again. So this is the end of that part of the run for the foreseeable future. And all it really does is finish off Lady Zorro's story. And, what it is she confronts Zorro... Or she goes off killing people in cold blood, which he is not okay with. He confronts her about it, and they fight El Gago, and then she's injured, and he takes her to the den and cares for her, then tells her that she can't just be a cold-blooded killer anymore, and then she rides off into the sunset to be on the right path of justice, not just rage. I just don't think that's enough. We had the regent character, the governor character, whatever you want to call him. He doesn't get any conclusion. And like I said, there are only 2 story elements in Volume 3 that got any kind of setup, and that was him and Diego finding out, or Alejandro finding out Diego is Zorro. And only one of those things got paid off. So we got this villain who's just sitting there waiting to be paid off. And then we got El Gago, who's set up at the end of the last volume and appeared throughout this. And he doesn't get, his comeuppance or anything. He just kind of shows up, is a problem for a little while, and will be dealt with later on. So really, all we've gotten is a payoff for the death of Zorro's father and the payoff for the Lady Zorro character. And with the hit and the art, oh my god, it's not bad. Some of these panels just look terrible, though. It doesn't look right. Look at her face. It's such an awkward face. Zorro's too, but still, it's just... And it's so sketchy. I don't like sketchy comic book panels. Doesn't look good. Where's that image of Diego? I was very disappointed by this in a lot of ways. It's okay. It's just not as good as it could be. And without getting to pay everything off, it's very disappointing in that way. This could have been brilliant. They need at least one more volume to wrap up their loose ends here, and they probably aren't gonna get it. Sorry, Matt Wagner. You probably should have gotten a little quicker with your stories, man. There's some fun stuff with Zorro, like scaring the wits out of the Alkalade. That was pretty clever. They're kind of setting him up as a really superstitious guy, and so Zorro starts to pick up and play that part of it up and everything. And that was pretty funny. It's always nice to see Zorro embarrass public officials, but still, it's so much left undone. If there were another volume, I'd probably be much less harsh on this than I feel like I am being. But for the moment, at least to the best of my knowledge, there is not. And that sucks. So, it's a tricky thing to balance, I feel, when doing comic book writing, because, it is supposed to be it is supposed to be both episodic and have a bit of an anthology element to it. Anthological, if that's a word. And so you have to be able to balance that. You have to be able to satisfy the story you're telling in the issue that you're telling it in, and also leave people enough to come back wanting more. You need to leave an air of mystery about it so that people will come back and want to read more of it. And this just doesn't... This did too much of one and not enough of the other. It set up too much. It wrote more checks than it could cash. The way comic books usually work is you're given a contract of the number of issues you're going to do. And so you tell your story in those issues. And occasionally you can, undershoot it a little bit or overshoot your contract. And you'll be fine, but counting on being able to get a renewed contract to do another story arc is really problematic, because if your book's not selling, then you're not going to be able to do it. So all you've done is left the people that were reading and enjoying your book with a bunch of loose ends that don't get tied up. And that sucks. And that's what we have here. We have a bunch of loose ends that aren't tied up, and that's disappointing. So, yeah. Ultimately, with the Matt Wagner Zorro run, now that I've done all of it, I would recommend the first 2 volumes. You can get the third still. I think the third almost just entirely stands on its own. And then, you can read Zorro Rides Again, Volume 1. And that might just be the best place to stop. Because all this will do is just leave you wanting more, but not in a good way. Especially since you're probably not going to get it. So yeah, I'd probably say the first 2 volumes are the best stuff of the Matt Wagner Zorro run. It's got just a lot of really great moments in it. And then the 3rd volume is certainly enjoyable. It's a lot of fun. I had a big smile on my face while I was talking about it. But it's just, all it does is leave you wanting things that you're never going to get. So I can't recommend reading it knowing that it's not going to be properly concluded. And this, I enjoy parts of it, so if you're loving everything in the Wagner Zorro run, should you start reading it, you might as well read the whole thing, even if it might not ever be ended. So, I guess that'll about do it for this week's episode of Comic Reviews. Kind of a negative week. Batman Beyond obviously didn't like Batman. DC Comics Bombshells was just okay overall. Darth Vader was good, but, not, exceptionally so. It was pretty standard quality for that book. I didn't care for James Bond, and yeah, the trade this week was, overall, I hate to say it, a big disappointment. So yeah, really harsh week, guys, but you know what? You can solve that problem for me. If you have comics that are coming out week to week that you would like me to pick up that you think are good, that I would enjoy, please leave them in the comments below. I will pick up at least 1 issue, and if I like it enough, I will add it to my pull list. If you have a trade that you'd like me to keep an eye out for, please leave it in the comments below, and I will do my best to get a hold of it if it becomes available to me. That'll do it, though. Until next time, bye.